Haas and Sullivan in 2000. Economic engagement might offer tangible incentives such as export credits, investment insurance, and promotion, access to technology, loans, and economic aid. Incentives involve the removal of penalties, whether they be trade embargoes, investment bans, or high tariffs. Political engagement can involve the lure of diplomatic recognition, access to regional and international institutions, or the scheduling summits between leaders, or the termination of these benefits. Military engagement can involve the extension of INAT, funding non-governmental organizations, facilitating the flow of remittances, and promoting the exchange of people between the countries are under a policy of cultural engagement. By focusing our analysis, help produce a framework to guide the use of engagement strategies in the upcoming decades. B, violation. They're not a tangible trade or financial benefit. C, voting issue for limiting ground. Non-economic areas are huge, overstretched research burdens, and require completely different strategies. Trade and finance allows us sufficient flexibility to lock in a core mechanism of preparation. Next off is the politics to add. 1. Immigration reform will pass now. Piecemeal compromise. Irwin 115. Prospects for CIR are looking up, but Boehner back before us Obama would sign smaller reforms to the laws as he looks to gain momentum. Boehner's pivot on immigration might be in recognition of an increasingly diverse election ahead. Buckling Tea Party allies several times Republican seat before was vital to winning over Latino voters. 2. CIR will pass now, and PC is key. Boehner's support, decreasing Tea Party pressure, momentum approved, AP 17. His agenda tattered. Obama is winning a lasting legislative achievement and overhaul of immigration laws. It will require a deft and careful use of his own powers, combining a public campaign with quiet behind-the-scenes outreach to Congress. Boehner sent signals that raised expectations among overhaul supporters. Boehner in December hired Rebecca Talents. Even opponents saw Talents' election as the signed legislation had suddenly become more likely. Boehner fed speculation he would ignore Tea Party pressure. Immigration reform is going to pass. The question is, what are the things that Republicans can't move away from? What are the things that Democrats can't walk away from? That's part of the process going back and forth. 3. Economic engagement in Mexico is politically divisive despite supporters. This cost PC, Wilson 13. The United States and Mexico have an important choice to make. Many policymakers have made serious actions to support regional exports more politically divisive than it ought to be. 4. Key to CIR's key to sustainable growth, it stops a double dip recession, House is 910. Consider a possible double dip mere months after the last. The fundamental problem of American economy is the decline in the capabilities of our workforce. True growth, not the unofficial kind of verb of fiscal policy, stems from innovations. Cutting-edge technologies come from human capital. The American workforce has been in steep decline. Innovation-fueled growth will take place inside America. Our economy will spiral. The only answer is to reach out to China and India. This will, in the long run, inject new vitality into our workforce and our economy and cure deep economic ills. And 5, economic collapse causes nuclear war, that which turns the entire case. Oh, Hamlin and all 12. American weakness undercuts U.S. leadership abroad. Countries sense our weakness. Allies will doubt our commitment and pursue nuclear weapons. Adversaries will sense opportunities and be less restrained. Major war will be likely. Obama articulated foreign policy visions, controlling climate change, curbing poverty, moving to a world free of nuclear weapons. There is a more urgent big picture restoring U.S. economic strength. Nothing else is possible. That prerequisite for foreign policy is not reestablished. Next up is the China dissent. 1. The U.S. is backing out Latin America now. China is peacefully developing its sphere of influence, Hilton 13. In a striking acknowledgement of China's importance to the region, the U.S. and China have created a mechanism for mutual transparency through the U.S.-China dialogue in Latin America. Regardless of any real threat to the U.S., key decision-makers have not reacted. China's presence in Latin America is unlikely to diminish. 2. China sees American economic engagement in Latin America as containment. Rose 11. The global economic crisis encouraged China to expand its economic interests in Latin America. Today, China continues to view U.S. economic leverage to exert political pressure as a strategy of containment. Latin America is a very attractive market for China at a time when the U.S. is concentrating on violent extremism. China has made important inroads to expand its economic influence throughout Latin America. 3. Containment policies hurt U.S.-China relations. The pivot pushed us to the brink. Ikinson 13. The administration reported progress towards completion of a trade agreement between the U.S. and 10 other Asia-Pacific nations, which excludes China. U.S. has been executing a foreign policy pivot to Asia in the midst of intensifying acrimony with China. These developments have raised suspicion that the U.S. may be pulling back on its policy of engagement with China. That makes the future of U.S.-China relations murky, a future in which engagement looks different from containment. And 4, strong U.S.-China relations cause political reform and peace in China, as well as prevent several scenarios from global war, disease, terrorism, and control. Gross 13. Better relations with China would undercut authoritarian rule. The U.S. would avoid a military conflict for the foreseeable future. Other benefits the U.S. has allies include significantly reducing China's threat to Taiwan, utilizing China's program influence to North Korea to curb Pyongyang's nuclear weapons programs, increasing security cooperation, allowing the United States to leverage China's capabilities for climate change, energy security, pandemic disease, cyber terrorism, and nuclear proliferation. Curtailing cyber attacks by Chinese military bomb the U.S. Obama should seize the opportunity created by the emergence of China's new leadership to stabilize relations by pursuing a diplomatic strategy. Move on to water. 1. As policymakers in a nuclear world, we have to prevent extinction at all costs. Block 88. No one who's concerned for humanity will risk eliminating humanity for the sake of justice. To risk collective death or conscience would be irrational. To say 1 in 9 10 is a catastrophe, but fail to stop other person would be beside the point when the world is at stake. We would have to take the killing innocent in order that the world not punish. And 2, international relations approach to resource management guarantees the acceleration of socio-economic conditions at the root of multiple crises. By emphasizing securitization and new resources, they foreclose any analysis of the structural factors that generate conflict. Militarism becomes an avenue for pacification that greatly violence, I'm at 11. Calls for violent security based on retreat in a manner which political actors construct discourse and scarcity in the context of historically specific relation and domination, which are often implicated in the acceleration of these very crises. Orthodox IR approaches lacks capacity to grasp the unsustained trajectory, is only applicable in the context of a wider system, overexploited the biophysical environment which it embedded. They are unable to address the relationship of the interstate system itself to the biophysical environment. They cannot recognize the irrelevance of economy and society. They neglect the profound irrationality of collective state behavior. President IR theory does not question the present order, and instead has the effect of legitimizing and redefining it. Orthodox IR sanitizes globally destructive collective interstate behavior as a normal function of instrumental reason, thus rationalizing deeply irrational actions that threaten to permanently erode security by destroying the very conditions of human existence. Realism and liberalism are ideologically implicated in the acceleration of global systematic crises, marginal counter crises. And 3, they only solve the border, they can't solve for water access throughout the entirety of Mexico because they don't access any structural violence impacts here. On to Nile Basin. 1. Water scarcity does not risk conflict. Brooks, Linton, 2K. The presence of water on international borders is more likely to provide a catalyst for cooperation and conflict. In examining cases generally considered to be examples of international water conflicts, they arrive at a surprising conclusion. Instead of fighting, countries that share water resources maintain negotiations and lead to treaties for joint management of water. And 2. There's no empirical basis for water wars. Action 2. Evidence indicates that very territorial issues have been indicated virtually every dispute over water. In most cases, there's ample supporting evidence that despite many predictions to the contrary, true water wars have been very rarely, if at all. And 3, they can't solve for the Nile because they don't do anything with the Nile, and there won't be any modeling because Egypt can't afford the institution that they're creating. And 4, their impact is not unique. There are already the beginnings of a civil war in Egypt. That means they're not over water. And 5, they can't solve. They don't do anything in Egypt. Their plan does not engage with Egypt at all. And 6, they can see across. There's the same model. It's not working around the world. None of their models translates to Africa because Africa has a bunch of countries fighting for water, whereas US and Mexico is only one country fighting for a shared water resource. It means they can't solve. On to dolphins. 1, they can't solve for dolphins. Their evidence says offshore fishing hurts dolphins. They increase access to water on the border. That does not stop offshore fishing. And 2, their dolphins cards are about different species of dolphins. Their first card indicates that Pacific dolphins are going to die, but their second card indicates that different kinds of dolphins are key to biodiversity. And 3, environmental resilience, functional redundancy checks biodiversity, dormants, okay? Tells the ecological horror, highlight how close the hatching might be and how little we know about what chicken one, but even if the world includes far fewer species, the whole people, most cases, the function are performed by multiple species. Functional redundancy means higher proportion of species can be lost to class. And 4, captive breeding solves biodiversity loss. Primic 2, captive breeding sophisticated reintroduction of the threatened species is an important and very successful tool for species conservation. Captive breeding studies advises many species might similarly be rescued zoos by popular gardens and aquarium providing same that when other measures fail. And 5, only 3,000 die every year. It's not enough to cause extinction. And 6, preserve DNA prevents extinction. Inheritance. And 4, DNA preserved in one species close to extinction could revive in the future. Genetic blueprints of thousands of animals are preserved in the world's first DNA bank. Mark's card bank.
Okay, first off, can you clarify more on your argument on our 1?
Which argument?
Advantage on our advantage 1.
Which argument I made?
Could you just clarify all of the arguments?
Yeah, sure. Our first card is from Mach 88. It indicates that as policymakers, we are concerned for humanity. We have to prevent extinction at all costs because extinction is the only irreversible impact, and it's the biggest moral obligation to prevent extinction because it kills everyone and destroys agency and life for everyone. This argument functionally is just an answer to the destructive violence arguments. And then our second card, our Ahmed 11 card, indicates that your approach to resource management guarantees the acceleration of the impacts that you claim to solve for because you emphasize the securitization of new resources. You foreclose any actual analysis of structural factors that generate the conflict in the first place. That means that militarism becomes inevitable because you posit resources as something that need to be securitized and that we need to take them over.
Okay, and onto your politics, DA, how does our plan undermine the immigration bill?
Yeah, sure. Our Wilson 13 indicates that economic engagement in Mexico is really unpopular in Congress, and that means Obama's going to have to push really hard for your plan. And when Obama pushes hard for your plan, our AP 17 evidence indicates that he won't have the influence necessary to push immigration reform through, and he won't be able to convince Boehner to stay on board with CIR.
Okay, and on your China DA, what was your impact on the China DA?
Our Gross 13 indicates quite a few impacts. One impact is political reform and peace in China. Our second impact is global warfare between China and the United States. The third impact is disease spreads. The fourth impact is terrorism. It also solves for North Korean nuclear weapons proliferation. Basically, it's just relations that it will solve for every impact.
And how does our plan lead to this